For thousands of years, there's been this one story that's just captivated us. It's a tale of a magnificent island empire, way more advanced than anyone could imagine, that was just swallowed by the sea in a single night. This is the legend of Atlantis. So let's just dive right into this whole mystery, shall we?
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? The one that keeps the legend alive. An entire civilization, a real powerhouse, just wiped clean off the map. Is it really just a story, or could something that catastrophic actually have happened?
And this is where it all starts. Now, here's the thing you absolutely have to know. The only ancient source we have for the story of Atlantis is the philosopher Plato. He wasn't a historian, he was a philosopher. He wrote about it in a couple of his dialogues, describing it as this huge naval power that existed, get this, 9,000 years before his own time.
So, of course, a story this epic is gonna inspire people, right? Generations of explorers, archaeologists, and hey, let's be honest, dreamers have been hunting for a real-world location. So let's take a look at the top candidates and see if any of them actually hold up.
Okay, first up, and probably the most famous theory, points us right to the Greek island of Santorini. Back in the day, it was called Thera, and around 1600 BCE, a massive volcanic eruption literally blew the island to pieces. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because the details seem to line up so well. You've got a sudden, violent end, a super advanced seafaring civilization, the Minoans, and the island was even circular before it blew, which sounds a lot like Plato's description of a city built in rings. And this theory didn't just pop up overnight. As you can see here, it was built piece by piece over decades. It started way back in 1872 with Louis Figuier, who was the first to connect the volcano to the myth. Then other scholars came along, like Frost and Marinados, and they linked it to the incredible Minoan civilization on nearby Crete. And eventually, it all got mashed together into the theory that's so popular today. But, and this is a big but, here's where the whole theory starts to fall apart. See, Plato was super specific on three key things: the when, the how big, and the where. He said Atlantis sank 9,000 years before his time, not 1,200. He said it was a massive continent, larger than Libya and Asia combined, not some little island in the Aegean. And he put it beyond the Pillars of Hercules. That's way out in the Atlantic Ocean, not tucked inside the Mediterranean. I mean, these aren't tiny details you can just kind of sweep under the rug. And wow, this chart right here just lays it all out. When you really get down to it and compare Plato's very specific descriptions of Atlantis to what we've actually dug up from Minoan Crete, the similarities just vanish. This analysis shows that a staggering 81% of what Plato described is flat out contradicted by the physical evidence. So while the idea is super cool, the facts just don't back it up. So with Santorini looking pretty shaky, let's move on to the next candidates. This is a more recent theory from an archaeologist named Richard Friend, and it places Atlantis in southern Spain, right near the Pillars of Hercules. Now, satellite images of these wetlands, the Doñana National Park, have shown what seriously look like submerged circular structures. Friend's idea is that a monster tsunami buried the city in mud, and that the survivors built these smaller memorial cities nearby, like one called Cancho Ruano, which actually has engravings of concentric circles, which is just eerie. Okay, and then there's this other one you've probably seen floating around the internet, the Rishat structure in Mauritania, aka the Eye of Africa. It looks incredible from space, I'll give it that. The rings are amazing, but that's kind of it. Plato's city was about 3 kilometers wide. The Rishat is over 40. Plato talks about a mighty naval empire. The Rishat is a completely natural rock formation, hundreds of kilometers from the ocean, in the middle of a desert with absolutely zero evidence that anyone ever built a major city there. So, yeah. Probably not it. So if these locations are all dead ends, where does that leave us? Well, maybe the biggest twist here is that we've been looking in the wrong place this whole time. Maybe the real Atlantis isn't buried under miles of ocean or mud, but it's been hiding in plain sight, right there in Plato's original writings. And this quote from Professor Christopher Gill, man, it just nails it. Most experts on ancient philosophy think we've been missing the point by getting so hung up on the lost city part. The story isn't just about Atlantis. It's about Atlantis versus an ancient, perfect version of Athens. To really get what Plato was up to, we have to talk about this one key idea: allegory. An allegory is basically a story that has a hidden meaning, right? It's designed to teach you some kind of moral or political lesson. And Plato, I mean, he was one of the greatest philosophers in history. He was all about the moral and political lessons. So, here's the bottom line, according to most scholars. Atlantis was a thought experiment. Plato made it up. He created this incredibly powerful, rich, technologically advanced empire that had just become greedy, arrogant, and corrupt. And he put it up against this fictional, perfect version of his own city, Athens, which he made out to be totally virtuous and noble. In his story, the arrogant Atlantis attacks Athens and loses. It gets defeated before the gods get angry and sink the whole island as punishment. It's a fable about pride. Okay, but wait a second. If it was just some philosophical story to make a point, why are we still so obsessed with it? How did this 2,400-year-old fable become one of the most famous myths in the world? And it turns out, for most of history, people knew it was a fable. The big change, the moment it all flipped, that came in 1882, thanks to a guy named Ignatius Donnelly. His book basically hijacked Plato's original story and remixed it into this literal history of a lost super-civilization, a mother culture that he claimed all other ancient civilizations came from. Donnelly is the guy who really invented the modern myth of a high-tech Atlantis. And after that, boom, Atlantis was suddenly everywhere in pop culture. It became our go-to symbol for lost greatness and secret ancient tech. You see it from Disney movies with their steampunk version, to Aquaman's incredible underwater kingdom in the comics, and of course, in all those wild conspiracy theories that try to link it to aliens and the pyramids. I mean, look at this. This really says it all, doesn't it? We have literally built theme park attractions for a place that, in all likelihood, never even existed. We're not just fascinated by a lost city. We're in love with the dream of a lost golden age, some perfect society that we think we've lost. But in the end, it almost doesn't matter if it was real or not. The story still works exactly the way Plato wanted it to. It's a warning. It's a cautionary tale that makes us think about what happens when a society's power and ambition get so big that it just loses its moral compass. When your technology outpaces your values. That's a story that feels very, very relevant today.
So maybe the real mystery isn't where Atlantis is buried. Maybe the real mystery is why we still feel this deep need to find it. Our nonstop search for a lost paradise, this perfect city that fell from grace. What does that powerful concept